What is up, guys? Welcome to episode 2 of Freedom Sentinels, where we're here to guard freedom. But to first guard, we have to understand and live it. So simple. So, how we do this is we create personal and financial freedom to shape opportunities in order to mold others. Right? It's simple. If you tuned into episode 1, I hit on that a little bit more, but I'm here to tell you if you can create freedom, shape opportunities for yourself and others, you're going to mold better humans, get better experiences, and have a more fulfilled life. Guys, I am super excited for today, but something I want to hit on before we jump in. Mentioned how a statistic of podcasts is to be in the top percent of podcasters, you need 20 to 21 episodes. So I've made a challenge for myself to do 90 podcasts in 90 days. I might change that to do 2 podcasts every day. So it's going to be between 90 and 180. Why? Because I'm hungry. I want to get this content out there. I want you guys to listen, get value, and implement it into your life. And how do we do that? We do that by staying consistent. If I can consistently do something for 7 days a week for 3 months, the hope is the value driven content gives you something you can apply to your life every day and make yourself better, right? That's giving you the opportunity, that's shaping the opportunity to mold others. That's all this podcast is about. So I am excited to jump into today because it is all about real leaders. Okay, this is going to be a themed series consistently throughout where it's real leaders blank, where we figure out what leadership looks like, how good leaders get better, and what they really look like. So without further ado, let's hop into real leaders read. So when you think leader, you might picture a boardroom, a podium, maybe even a battlefield, right? I have military background. I hope some of my listeners are military and veterans because I have a heart to serve them and I have a heart to serve many, many people, but I can resonate and help them a little bit better because I understand the process. But one habit that shows up over and over and over again is real leaders. What they do is lead, right? Warren Buffett says he spends about 80% of his day reading. 80% out of 24 hours. Over 16 hours of that, maybe my math is off, is done reading. That's huge. Bill Gates reads around 50 books a year. A survey, a survey of Fortune 500 CEOs showed that CEOs, leaders of companies, read 4 to 5 books a month. Comparing that to the national average, most adults don't even finish one. Do you see a problem there? You have these dreams, you have these goals to be great, but the average doesn't finish one. So to be in the top percent of reading adults, you just have to finish one book a year. That's crazy. And you compound that to 2, 3, 4, 5, you start acquiring knowledge, which is huge. So today we're going to talk about why reading sharpens leadership, what kinds of books leaders choose, and how to build a rhythm that actually sticks. So point 1, and I hope you're taking notes, the case for leaders who read. Reading isn't just a hobby. It's a discipline that multiplies leadership ability, multiplies the ability to lead. Not adds to, not subtracts, multiplies. Research shows that deep reading strengthens critical thinking, improves judgment, and helps leaders resist misinformation. Meanwhile, leisure reading overall has declined nearly 40% in the last 2 decades. Okay, so my worry is as statistics, right, they can either grow or decrease, is if we hit 50%, leisure reading decreases to 50%, that means 1 in 2 Americans, 1 in 2 people don't even pick up a book, don't even read. Yet it helps critical thinking, it improves judgment, and helps you understand what is right and what is wrong, what is misinformation. So, guys, point one is reading is the competitive edge most people leave on the table or even leave at the bookstore because they don't even take the time to buy. Reading is nothing more than an investment to yourself that you're refusing to do based on averages. And I don't know about you, but I don't like being average. What I'm doing isn't for the average person, but what I'm hoping to do is to reach the average person, cultivate, instill confidence and identity in them, in you, to get you further in life because your dreams and goals call for that. They need that. Guys, so point two, section two, the 3 ways of how reading builds leadership. First, it sharpens thinking. Leaders often make decisions with incomplete information. Books give you mental models to fill the gaps. Okay, so that's misinformation, right? You go into a conversation, you don't have all the answers, you don't have all the information laid out in front of you, right? They're fragments, right? Reading, because you have this knowledge, you've acquired this knowledge through investing in yourself. You now, when you have partial information, you can backfill and fill in these gaps because of the knowledge you have, because you took the time to better yourself in order to better others. Secondly, reading deepens empathy, whether it's fiction, biographies, and history. They let you live through experiences you'll never have, building your ability to understand people. I'm going to change that. Okay. It's not that you'll never have them. You can, but you have to take the first step. Okay. What can you do from fiction? There's values and character traits from the characters in the book that you can take from, make them a part of your life, and become similar to that character. What can you take from other people? Biographies, autobiographies. Again, that's values and character traits. Mistakes they've made. Huge history. History repeats itself. There's literally cycles that repeat. And I'm not going to go too much in depth on this, but there's something called the cycle of war. Do your research on it. It's fascinating. But what that is literally the cycle of pre-war, during war, after war. And what does that look like? What is the build up to that? The climax, right? All this is story arcing, right? How do you write a story? Well, you have your start, and you build to your climax, right? You have your rising action, your climax, and your falling action. We learn this in grade school, but you can literally apply this to everything in life. Okay, every decision you make. This is what reading does for us, is it allows us to understand the art of storytelling as well. We can apply it into everything we do. Okay, rising action. What do we need to do in order to get to this goal, right? That's going to be our climax. Okay, cool. Now we've gotten our goal. We've obtained it. Well, now there's falling action. Well, what is that? Now that's the cycle where you go, okay, cool. I got it. What's next? So now you're building for better opportunities onward. That's all you're doing. And then you have the action again to obtaining it to all right, cool, let's figure something else out. And boom, right? It's just this cycle. Okay. Third, reading compounds wisdom. Bill Gates has think weeks where all he does is he disappears with a stack of books and notebooks. That week, all he does is read and reflect. And because of that, some of Microsoft's biggest innovations have come from it. So you're telling me a week of devoted reading, critical reading, strategic reading has allowed him to acquire knowledge to then go implement into one of the largest companies we know of. I don't know about you, but if for me, I'm seeing that as like, damn, I need to do more. Like, I really need to do more reading. Because if one week from a highly successful CEO does this, owner of the company, holy shit. All I get from that is do more, read more, get into it, get after it. Okay, so takeaway two is reading sharpens judgment, grows empathy, and compounds into lasting wisdom. To add to that, Patrick bet David, the currency in his household for his kids to get something that they want is the amount of books it costs for Patrick bet David to then give that to his kid. It's a currency. So if an uber successful individual understands reading is a currency and utilizes that in his household, don't you think that's something you should adopt? Isn't that something you should take heed to and be like, okay, I really need to go into this. I really need to read. Because if successful people say it's a currency, but the average individual doesn't see it that way, there's misinformation. See what I did there? Reading helps with that. But we cannot have the average individual think that they cannot have something in their life when other people do. And if reading is a currency, understand that. Take heed to that. Make it an action. Guys, point three. What leaders read? Patterns, not rules. Okay. Real leaders don't just read one genre. They mix business and strategy, history, biography, fiction for empathy, and philosophy for perspective. Okay. Using General James Mattis, he's a really strong example. Okay, his nickname was the Warrior Monk. He maintained a personal library of thousands, not 10, not 20, not 200, thousands of books. And he once said, the problem with being too busy to read is that you learn by experience. And that's the hard way. Think about that. Learning by experience is the hard way. I know I don't want to make the same mistake as another. If I have access to it, if I can learn the mistake that someone else made, then I can go around that mistake. I don't have to make that mistake myself in real time. So you're telling me that reading allows us to read about mistakes, learn a strategy, and bypass a mistake that we might have made because we read. That's huge. So takeaway number three is leaders read broadly and reflect deeply. Okay. Point four, overcoming barriers. Okay, three barriers that come up and up and up again. The first one is time. The solution, schedule reading like it's a meeting, even 10 minutes a day. Okay. You can look up time blocking. All time blocking is saying, hey, during this time block, this is what I do. The next time block, this is what I'm doing. It's easy. Alex Ramosi reverse engineers his day. So if you need to do something with him, if you need to have a meeting with him, That first scheduled is on the back end of the day. Because if you take up his mornings, he says, well, now I feel like I can't do anything. So if your mornings are sacred to you, start from the end of the day on a calendar and time block backwards. Reverse engineer your day. Barrier two, retention. Take notes, write a takeaway after each reading session, after each chapter. Okay. There's two ways you can do this. Jordan Peterson has said, don't take notes while listening or reading. Finish it, finish what you're reading, finish what you're listening to, and then write down what you remember. Because what you write down is what stood out the most and mattered the most to you. It's one way, not the only way. I typically end up doing both depending on what I'm doing. So if it's a sermon, I'll take notes during, whether that's highlighted, uh, bullet pointed notes, awesome. Because all it is to help when I read it, generate my thinking again to take better notes. Same thing when I was in college. I did Jordan Peterson's way. I didn't really pay attention in class as far as taking notes like a normal person. I waited. Because here's the thing, in a school setting, in a university setting, they give you homework over what they discussed. So in technicality, you almost have a note system structured for you if you just listen and then go apply it. See how this is becoming easier? That third barrier is the overwhelm. Start with two books connected to your current challenge and one wild card, right? So kind of what I'm doing is I have three books of suggestion. It's super simple. I have a fiction book. I grew up on these books. The Hardy Boys, fiction. But what does it do? They're detectives. They're thinking. And throughout the books, they have to solve the mystery. But that's critical thinking in fiction. Okay. The Go-Giver. I have read this. I recommend it. It is huge. Okay. And a really, really applicable leadership book, even more than The Go-Giver, is one of my favorites. Leaders Eat Last by Simon Sinek. I love this man. Um, I've studied a lot of his work, and I hope to be able to meet him one day and have a podcast with him, or even just a coffee to talk. Because that man has not only changed my life, but the work he's done has impacted so many others. And so to show you that I'm doing the same thing that I'm talking about and preaching about, these are my four books for the month of October that I'm going to read. Okay. Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. Rich Man, Poor Bank by Mark Quan. Your Next Five Moves by Patrick Bet-David. And then Relationship Goals by Michael Todd. They're all different. One's strategic, one's relationships, right? I'm single. Something that I do want is a wife. But what I know right now is I'm in a time of work. I'm in a time of learning. So why not add learning how to conduct better relationships, connect better, be more intimate, right? Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich, strategic, critical thinking. And then Rich Man, Poor Bank is about financial literacy, right? So learning how to use money better, right? I'm in that career field. That's something that I do. So not only do I want to understand it to better educate the people I talk to, but also that's something so huge that a lot of people don't understand. So if I read something that puts me above average, I'm going to do so. So takeaway four, don't wait for perfect conditions. Just start. Okay, guys. So real leaders read not because it's trendy, right? We can look at the statistics, we can look at the averages. Nearly 40% don't read, right? The average adult doesn't even finish a book. That's not a trend. But reading works. So here's the challenge. Pick one book, commit to reading 10 minutes a day this week. Capture one actionable insight every time you close the book. So read it. And then one thing you got from the 10 minutes, write it down. Okay. The next episode, we're going to shift gears and we're going to talk about the money traps of your 20s. Now, this can be applicable to somebody not in their 20s, right? Again, financial literacy is not something taught enough. So you can be making the same money traps, doing the same money traps that someone in their 20s is doing because you don't know. Okay, so the financial pitfalls that can destroy your freedom before it even starts. Guys, I'm so excited for this. But I'll see you on the next episode.